We're going to continue in this series we've been in called we're calling it Just Spirituality. It's based on a book that some of us are reading together by May Elise Cannon. We're going to have an opportunity at the end of the series to discuss the different sermons, and if you've been reading the book, you can discuss the book as well. But it's a book that's really connecting our inner spiritual life to the way we live and work in the world, and so it focuses on different, I think 7 different spiritual practices, and thinking about how those faith practices, those spiritual practices influence the way we live and work in our world and how we show up in this world. And so today, we're going to be talking about the practice of community. We've already talked about prayer, we've talked about silence and solitude, and we talked about the discipline of study. And today we're going to be talking about community. And I'm excited to talk about community because I think it's really important right now that we lean into our community. And we continue to learn how to show up for each other and love one another, even in radical ways if needed. So I'm going to read from John chapter 17 to start. It's a really short section that we're going to read today. This is from the farewell discourse. These are Jesus' final words he gave to his disciples before he was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane. I'm just going to read from the screen. Jesus says, my prayer, he's praying at this point to the Father, and he says, my prayer is not for them alone, speaking about his followers. But he also prays, he said, I pray also for those who are going to believe in me through their message. And here's his prayer, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one, I and them and you and me, so that they may be brought into complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Throughout my life, I've had some moments when I felt like I was truly connected to other people. Moments in my life when I truly felt like I had real community. In high school, I remember I was part of a youth group here in town at a church, and it was a youth group that got to do a lot, and it was really fun. And I went on mission trips to different places. I went to Chicago, to Costa Rica, I got to go to Jamaica. I took retreats out into the wilderness. Many of these trips that I took were really wonderful, and I remember when me and my friends and the leaders, we all got away together, I remember feeling so close to the group, so open to them, so alive, and it felt like we were on the same page and we're moving in the same direction. It felt like community. When I was in college, Hurricane Wilma blew through South Florida, right through our campus. The eye of the storm passed right over us. We didn't evacuate, and we stayed through the storm, and it turned out to be stronger than we thought it was going to be. And we were without power for many days. And a group of us, students, many of us juniors and seniors there at the school, we banded together and we tried to take care of each other as best as we could. We were in a little apartment community there, and some of us had gas ovens and stoves, and so we shared our ovens and stoves. We shared meals, we shared candles. We got together and played board games. We spent time together. We were committed to each other. We had a shared purpose of looking out for one another and surviving this hurricane. It felt like community. Early on during my time here at this church, I remember years and years ago, we did this thing where during the week for 5 days straight, we gathered in different people's houses in the evening, and we read through all 150 Psalms together. And so we read 30 Psalms each night, 5 nights straight in people's homes. And it felt good to be together, reading the scriptures aloud together. It felt like we were unified together. It really felt like community. A couple of years ago, I went to Red River Gorge with some men. 5 other guys went with me, and we went and we had so much time to talk openly and vulnerably about our lives, about our fears and our hopes and our dreams. We laughed, we shared food, we even shed tears, we reflected. It felt like community. I'm wondering if you all have moments in your life when you felt like you were truly connected to other people, and it felt like community. You know, most of these moments of community that I can remember, they were emotional, rare, and very short-lived. Christine Pohl, a former professor at Asbury who passed away in the last couple of years, she did extensive research on community. When she asked students and friends of hers to describe their experience of community, many of them shared similar things to what I've shared with you all this morning. The experiences were short-lived. They were intense emotional bonding with a group of people. And here's what she says. Such experiences of community tend to be brief, occasional, and intense. Communities in which we grow and flourish, however, last over time and are built by people who are faithful to one another and committed to a shared purpose. She's not saying these short-lived, intense experiences are bad, but she's saying the communities that really help us thrive and grow and flourish are the ones that last over time and are built by people who are faithful to one another and committed to a shared purpose together. These short moments, these intense moments of bonding are valuable, but not exactly what we would call community. Because communities that help us grow and flourish are the ones that last for the long haul. They last for the long haul. And you know, I want Embrace to be a community that lasts for the long haul. That's been part of just who I am and what's been important to me and many other leaders at this church for a long time. And that's been my goal, really, is to help nurture and sustain a community and build a community that can be here for a long time, that's going to be consistent, and is going to be here for folks regardless of what's going on. And in many ways, we're already living into this, but we still have work to do because it's going to take work. Short-lived experiences of bonding, they're actually not that hard to create. You get a group of people you like together and you get out together somewhere and you do something engaging with one another, talk about life. You can grow closer in those moments. However, building and sustaining community over the long haul is actually really hard work. It's really, really difficult. And here are some questions that I want us to be wrestling with throughout the year. How are we going to build and sustain community here at Embrace for the long haul? And how are we also going to live in community together in ways that honor each other and honor God? And this is a work in progress. It's very difficult actually to do that. And often people come to community and then they leave because things get difficult. But I want us to continue to press into one another and continue to try to nurture a community that's going to be here for a long, long time. You know, people in America really struggle to find community. Do y'all agree with that? That we're struggling to find community here in our nation? I talk to people all the time who are searching desperately for community. And it's not been easy. Some of y'all have shared with me and others recently, even in the past few days and weeks, that you've been trying to find community and friendship and connection, but it's not been easy and you don't feel like you found it yet. Some people have shared with us that and I feel this myself, that I actually need it right now because life feels too overwhelming right now. And I feel scared, I feel afraid, I feel overwhelmed, and I need other people. Some of y'all have shared that just to survive right now, you need some people in your life. And this is a big reason why people go to church often. We go to church, of course, to worship God, but a big reason we go to church is to find community, to find friendship, to find connection. People often don't stay at churches because they don't find the community or the friends that they're looking for, or it takes longer than they hoped it would. Sometimes people leave church communities because they were hurt in some way, and the community broke trust with them, and they had to move on. We want community, but we struggle to find it, and I think we also struggle to sustain it and to keep it going for the long haul. You know, while we may want community, I think that we're often not really willing sometimes to do what it takes to cultivate community with our neighbors, with our family, our friends, our church, because it takes a lot of work. It's taken for me a lot of forgiving people, a lot of asking for forgiveness. It takes telling the truth. It takes showing up to folks. It takes time. It takes all these things. But sometimes we're not willing to do the work. Christine Pohl said that we usually want community on our own terms, with easy entrances and exits, with lots of choice and support and minimal responsibilities. I don't think it's going to be possible to find really good community if that's what we're searching for. Yet I think this is often what we're wanting. We're wanting it to be on our own terms. We can come in and out as we want. So much support. We want everybody to support us, but we don't want to support too many people. That's often how we think about community. And part of it is just the nature of our society and our culture we live in. We live in a selfish nation that prioritizes the individual to such a degree that the individual has become God. Our culture doesn't really understand community. We worship ourselves, our individual ambitions, our individual right to do whatever we want. And I think our selfish ambition has left us lonelier than ever. And when we do find community, it's often with people just like us, people who don't really challenge us much, and people who are fairly easy to love. You know, I heard someone say once that we've spent a lot of time climbing up that ladder of social success only to stand alone at the top. Our commitment to the market gods, as Dustin has talked about, our commitment to economic success and social status, it's left Americans, I think, more lonelier than ever. And to fill the void, what a lot of us do is we just work harder, try to make more money, we buy more things, and none of it ends up satisfying us. I believe we need true community more than ever right now, particularly in this uncertain and scary moment that we're living in. We need communities that can help us grow and flourish and thrive. We are lonely people. We've talked about this, and we talked about solitude. We talked about loneliness. We live in a culture of isolation. While on the one hand, we're can connect to each other so easily, and we feel kind of connected to each other, I feel like on the other hand, we're still really lonely. I watched this TED Talk a few years ago by this lady named Sherry Turkle, and she said that technology has given us the illusion of companionship. Yet she says that these tiny doses of conversation and connection aren't actually leading to true friendship. Emojis and gifts and all the things can lighten the conversation, appear to be warm and welcoming, but these tiny doses and sips of conversation and connection don't seem to be leading us to true, deep friendship. I say this myself. I feel it personally. We may be connected to many people, but I'm thinking that we probably have fewer close friends than we've ever had. When I was in college, I was taught, this is true, I was taught the biblical basis for individualism. My professors at my school were sold out to the American dream and the American idea of individual achievement and personal responsibility. I was taught this theory of economics that says if you pursue your own self-interest, then somehow it's going to work out for everybody if we're all doing that. Self-determination, the ability to choose what you want to be, blaze your own trail, rise to the top. This is the heart of kind of our American value system. And I don't think it's completely awful. I think individual matters. I love that I can pursue my own path in many ways. I think God cares about me personally. But I think this hyper-individualism is so dangerous, and we do not find it in the Scriptures. Our Scriptures connect us tell us that we are connected to God, that we're connected to each other, we're connected to this earth that we live in. We're connected to the Spirit of God. Paul compares the church to a body with many parts that are valuable and necessary. And they all work together for the common good of the whole. He talks about even if one part of the body is suffering, then it affects everything else. And if you think about it, there's really no self-made person in our world. We become who we are because of the people around us. The earth is literally feeding us and sustaining us, and we often don't stop for a moment to say thank you. The Spirit breathes life into us. I am who I am because of you all, because of my family, because of my teachers. I am who I am because of this earth that has sustained me, because of the kids downstairs at Common Good, through folks from my old youth group days, like my friend Michael here, like has shaped me to be who I am today. And it really strikes at this African concept of Ubuntu that says, I am because you are. Desmond Tutu, he has also passed away in the past few years. He's was a bishop in South Africa. He said these words. He said, we are human because we belong. He says we are actually made for community, for togetherness, for family, to exist in a delicate network of interdependence. Each person is not just to be respected, but to be revered as created in God's image. And to treat one such as if they were less than this is not just evil, but it's veritably blasphemous, for it is to spit in the face of God. So strong words. They're strong words, but I believe it's true. And he's talking about perhaps to be human is actually to belong, that we were created to be in community and connected to one another. You know, we often talk about human nature as being so rotten and selfish and greedy and violent. That's like what it means to be human. And I wonder if we've got that backwards, actually. What if our human nature is, in fact, to be together? It is to support one another. It is to love. It is to be in community. Yet our society is teaching us to act contrary to our human nature. And it is destroying us. Growing up, I was told that I needed to have a personal relationship with Jesus and that He was going to give me personal salvation. I was told that Jesus loves me. This I know. I'm learning that the gospel isn't just about me and Jesus. It's more really about us and Jesus. And it really does a lot if you just switch that a little bit and see Jesus loves us. This we know. Jesus wants us to have a relationship with Him together in community so that we can all experience salvation. One of the first things Jesus did in His ministry, when He began His ministry, He began it alone in the wilderness, and He went through a time of testing. As soon as He comes out of the wilderness, He goes and He preaches this sermon, and then eventually He goes up and prays on a mountain, and He comes down, and one of the first things He does is He calls a community. At the very beginning, He says, I don't want to do this alone. I want people around me, and I'm calling a community of disciples and followers to come and do this work with me, to join Him in His mission, to redeem the world, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim a new era where love would reign supreme, where love would be the guiding principle, where love and peace would be what we pursue. Mother Teresa said, if we have no peace, it's because we've forgotten that we belong to each other. A primary focus for us this year at Embrace is going to be to strengthen and nurture our community at Embrace. Our leadership team met recently, and we divided up into some task forces, and all those are kind of focused on different elements of how we are going to strengthen and nurture our community, how we're going to widen our reach and invite more people and center the vulnerable in a more significant way, how we're going to do this at our community, because we recognize more than ever right now, we need each other. And we want to keep building and sustaining this community for the long haul. As the powerful continue to make decisions that cause chaos and suffering, we're going to continue to witness to something different by the way we live and work together at Embrace. And as it gets harder to make the right choice, we're going to need to encourage one another. Someone pointed out to me recently, encourage it's to give courage. And so us encouraging one another is going to embolden and encourage us, give us more courage and confidence to continue to make the loving choice Even when our society is going to tell us that's the foolish choice, even when the consequences could get scary for those choices, we're going to need each other. And I believe if we stay connected to God and we stay connected to one another, then we're going to be able to walk this road. And I can say as your pastor, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to continue to be here, trying my best to encourage you all, and I'm going to need you all to do that for me and for the other pastors at this church, and we can all be pastors to each other in this congregation as we continue to try to witness to Jesus and witness to the light of Jesus in a really dark time that we are living in. God is with us, and hopefully we also are with one another on this journey. What we're going to do now is we're going to watch a clip from Pastor Tanya. Tanya had taken kind of a year off to focus on some stuff in her own life, and she's come back, and she's now going to enter into doing some more pastoral stuff with us on a very part-time basis because she has a very full-time job at Step by Step. But one of her kids had been sick over the weekend, and so she wasn't able to be here to share with us in person, so she recorded a video for us. And shared it with me this morning because I wanted her to reflect a little bit on what she's thinking about community right now, some of her own story of community and hospitality, and I wanted to hear some of her encouragement because whenever I talk to Tanya, I leave with more courage every single time. And so I thought her voice would be important for us right now. And so we'll watch this video and then we'll share communion after that. Let's get some sound going. I'll go back and troubleshoot if needed. Well, we will start it over. Y'all need to hear the first part of what she said, you know? I probably muted the computer is probably what happened.
Papers. It was disinvestment by local government. Not enough jobs for unskilled.
All right, we're going to start it over. That was my fault, by the way. Don't blame the tech team. You can blame me.
Some of you have heard pieces of our story. We first moved into this community out of a desire to serve God. We thought moving into a place full of need and pain was a call to live more fully into the gospel. What we discovered, sitting on porches and meeting neighbors, was our own folly and ignorance, our own shortcomings and lack of humility. Our neighbors, sometimes gently and more often so not, showed us that the problems weren't sex workers, substance use disorder, or crime like we'd seen in the newspapers. It was disinvestment by local government, not enough jobs for unskilled laborers, demolition of sacred communal spaces in the name of progress and growth, and death by 1,000 assumptions. The gospel was already alive and well in this neighborhood. We weren't going to solve any problems. We were ill-equipped and would never have enough resources. In growing community, we learned that humility and grace led us to leave behind the Savior complex and lean into the Savior. We stopped looking at people as projects and community engagement as missionary work. We changed our goal to just being good neighbors, taking a posture of deep listening and offering space for others to gather. The first time we invited community into our space, we followed the model of the previous owners of our home, the Hines family, who'd hosted Saturday morning breakfast we'd attended before they sold the home to us. A simple breakfast of pancakes and coffee. We added waffles because who doesn't love a good waffle? And word spread. It became a weekly space for the lonely, the introverted, the new to town, and those just seeking connection. The table boasted Democrats and Republicans, independents and anarchists, all breaking bread together. 2 regulars started a nonprofit. There was even a couple that fell in love, and though they're not together anymore, it was really exciting to watch it blossom at the table. Everyone from the mayor to sex workers, friends seeking shelter, and complete strangers showed up. There were even neighbors whom we'd interacted with daily who just wanted us to bring them a plate outside on the porch because even a small crowd was too much for them. But they knew they were welcome. Through Heinz Breakfast, we met so many people who changed our lives, and we watched them impact one another as well. We were engaging in community, and it didn't happen because of us. We practiced presence and joined in what was already there. For many during this season, there is a sense of anxiety and fear because of the moment that we're in. It actually reminds me a bit of the uncertainty, division, and political divides that occurred during the height of the quarantine. During that time, a few local nonprofits came to us because of our connections to our neighbors. They asked if we would serve hot meals to families in need on our porch. Their assumption was that though educators were going door to door and bringing students food, some would fall through the cracks. But who showed up? Young adults, our elders, and our friends from disability communities who could not walk to the local hunger relief spots. And then an amazing thing happened. Word spread, and people began to ask how they could get involved. A professor from Transylvania University who felt helpless regularly dropped off fresh baked bread. Neighbors asked if they could contribute masks and hand sanitizer. The Nest Center for Women, Children, and Families, known for providing toiletries and many other services, shut down temporarily, like so many other staples in our community who offered relief. So, people online asked for toothbrushes, toothpaste, diapers, wipes, and other hygiene products. I put the call out on social media, and folks from Richmond, Virginia to Los Angeles sent toiletries, canned goods, and can openers. Uprising activists sent boxes from Louisville, Kentucky. Word got out, and there would be a line down the street, and neighbors in that line started assisting one another. I remember one elder did not have transportation but was feeding 5 grandchildren at home and endured a lot of pain just to walk to our house. Someone in the line, a stranger to her, called a cousin who had a car to come and get her and take her home with her meals. Like many parents and guardians, I was sitting in the house with 2 kids with special needs who needed services that were only offered online. Try doing occupational therapy with a 3-year-old or trauma therapy with a 2-year-old on Zoom. I was angry and sad and overwhelmed trying to run step by step a nonprofit that I work for young single moms ages 12 to 24, and knowing that they had incredible needs and they were trying to meet them with their own kids. There were days I had to decide between being a good mom and a good boss. But a strange thing happened to me. I stopped feeling overwhelmed and started feeling gratitude for the people I was getting to know and the wider community that wanted to make sure they had what they needed. I was called to more mercy and more love and to allow myself to receive that from others. I got advice on parenting from the neighbors in line, sometimes unsolicited, but always a gift. The circumstances hadn't changed. We were still living in deep uncertainty, but I changed in community. Georgia Gilmore and Inez Ricks are two of the unsung heroes of the civil rights movement. In order to sustain the Montgomery bus boycott, they organized the Club from Nowhere. It was dangerous for them to meet. If caught, at best, they would be charged with sedition or some other crime. At worst, they could be disappeared or killed. These women used what they could, cooking and organizing other women to make a difference. They sold pound cakes and sweet potato pies, fried fish and stewed greens, pork chops and rice at beauty salons, cab stands, and churches. Each week, they collected $500 or $600 that funded the alternative transportation system that helped them desegregate the buses in Montgomery after a 381-day boycott. In part, the efforts of these women bankrupted the bus system and allowed for the victory that provided hope across the nation. You can find Miss Gilmore's oral history online, and when asked if she thought folks would stay together before the boycott, she said no. It wasn't until Dr. King organized folks that they stuck with it. The Club from Nowhere were not merely cooks and organizers, they were educators too. Miss Gilmore shared, anyone that you would talk to and explain it to him and really and truly, explain the whole situation to him, you would always remember that he would be your friend. Now, a lot of people that we thought wouldn't contribute and help us did. She credited her faith and her community for making her brave against tyranny. I find so much hope in people who are not even treated as human beings in their community, and even though they pay taxes, manage to bankrupt the system by coming together. Led by their faith in Christ and their sense of justice, they set an example we are still in awe of today. One reason I am hopeful in this dark moment is because of our community at Embrace and the love we share and cultivate across difference. Our church mission statement is we are a diverse family of gritty Christ followers who place Jesus and his kingdom at the center of all we are about. We risk real life together, sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with our words and actions and our community in North Lexington. Make no mistake, community is messy and challenging, but in it, we become who Christ calls us to be. We can see his kingdom here on earth by leaning into others. And Let me just say, you won't always get it right. You will make mistakes. You will fumble. You will offend someone. You will disagree with someone. But we need one another to make it in a society so broken, so detached, so fractured. What we can offer in this space is to gather, to give listening ears, and to give grace that we also need to receive. And I'll end with words from Caitlin B. Curtis, an Indigenous writer, poet, and theologian. Even though the world is heavy and we are in so much pain, we still create with and for each other because we belong to one another. May we embody this in our church and in the community around us.